Hello and welcome back to the Dougie Critchley channel. Guys, today I'm going to be talking about 10 stars that are struggling for a variety of reasons, whether it's a new signing adapting, whether it's a change of formation, whether it's a few injuries at the start of this season, and crucially, how to fix their problems too. Let's get into the video. First up, I want to talk about Vinicius Junior. Now, he's been far from a disaster this season. He scored and assisted in a game against Real Oviedo. He scored against Mallorca. But last weekend, in a game against Real Sociedad, he was substituted after around 60 minutes for Fran Garcia. Now, admittedly, the context for that substitution is important. Real Madrid were down to 10 men after Dean Howson was sent off. Probably his first real error in a Real Madrid shirt so far. And against Marseille on Tuesday night, Xabi Alonso chose not to start him, and he only came on for the final 30 minutes, and there was very little impact in that time. So what's going on? Well, Rodrygo has made 2 of his 3 appearances in Vinicius Junior's preferred position on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, Xabi Alonso has used Franco Mastantuono far more than people expected at the start of this season. He's really impressed with his athleticism, with his tenacity, and with his quality too. Against Marseille, he contributed 6 shots and 3 dribbles. There's also the element of this Real Madrid side under Xabi Alonso are a far more cohesive, hard-working unit. He really wants to up the ante in terms of their pressing and their ability to win the ball back high up the pitch. It was in full effect in that first half, particularly against Marseille on Tuesday night. They were hunting as a pack, really winning the ball back high up the pitch, and whether Xabi Alonso believes he can do that so effectively with Vinicius Junior, with Kylian Mbappe on the same pitch, remains to be seen. And the results in terms of their passes per defensive action, so the amount of passes you allow your opponent before you interject, before you make a defensive action, have tumbled in La Liga. They've gone from 11.1 to 9.3, which is really pretty solid. And if you're going to choose between Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Junior right now, there is only one guy you are selecting, and it is the Frenchman. He has started the season on absolute fire. 2 penalties in midweek against Marseille, but so sharp in that game as he's been in La Liga across this season so far. He's taken the most shots in the entirety of Europe to date. He's created the most chances in Europe, along with Bruno Fernandes and Arda Güler too. Whereas Vinicius Junior, his shots per 90 have fallen to the lowest level of his entire career. His dribble success rate has fallen to the lowest level of his entire career. So if you're choosing between Rodrygo and Vinicius Junior right now, you're probably going to go with Rodrygo. And if you're choosing between Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Junior in terms of who to build this attack around, you're going to go with Kylian Mbappe too. So what's going to happen? How is this going to be fixed? Well, I think it's all on Vinicius Junior really. The hunger levels of Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Junior are understandably a little bit different right now. Kylian Mbappe arrived summer 2024. He watched his former side PSG win the treble. He's playing with an absolute fury right now. Vinicius Junior has won everything there is to win at Real Madrid multiple times over. He's had crucial roles in Champions League wins. And his form, since being denied that 2024 Ballon d'Or by Rodri, has never really hit the same heights just yet. So for me, this is on Vinicius Junior. He's got to get himself back into that starting 11 and then deliver. Stop what you're doing right now. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, like the video, and why don't you leave a comment too? I'll get back to you in the comments, I promise. Next up, let's head from Birmingham to Madrid. Probably not the most popular route, but I need to talk about Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa. He's had an absolutely fascinating last 2 years or so. 23-24 really couldn't have gone any better for the former Brentford man. He contributed 32 league goals and assists. That was only topped by Cole Palmer, who got 33 in the league that year, as Villa finished 4th. He got them into the Champions League. That summer, he goes to the Euros, understandably as understudy to England's all-time top goal scorer and one of the best strikers this country has ever produced in Harry Kane. But he still manages to make an impact too. He comes off the bench in that game versus the Netherlands in that Euros semi-final, scores the winning goal, comes on in the final too. Unfortunately, England lose. But he probably thought his life at the moment, that was the peak of it thus far, and it was only going to go up and up. And instead, there's been a few issues. Last season, 24 league goals and assists, 5th in the Premier League. On paper, it looks brilliant, but go beneath the surface and it's not quite as shiny. There was a 3-game stretch in the middle of December where he only played 58 league minutes. At the point in time, he was very much playing back up to Jhon Duran. January comes around, Jhon Duran leaves. He thinks, great, competition gone. No, in comes Marco Asensio. In comes Marcus Rashford. And actually, in the last 16-second leg against Club Brugge, he's taken off at half-time. Remember, mentally, Ollie Watkins is probably thinking, I did more than anyone else to get us into the Champions League this year, and now I'm not even being appreciated enough. In the quarter-finals, he didn't start either of those games against PSG, with Marcus Rashford starting both. This season rolls around after a summer in which Villa couldn't afford to retain Asensio and Rashford, and Bailey's left, and Diaby's left, and Jhon Duran's left. Basically, Villa really need him, and he's suffering somewhat of a hangover from last campaign. His shots have gone from 2.8 per 90 to 2.1. He's now getting just 0.5 shots on target per 90. That's the same as Yarmouk of Brentford. It's not nearly good enough. Look, Villa have been poor. 2 draws, 2 defeats. They're 19th for XG in the league. They're 17th for XG against in the league. But they need their bigger players, Morgan Rogers, Ollie Watkins, to step up. I know they don't have the supporting cast anymore, but Ollie Watkins, this is your time. I do think he can get back to his best. I'm a firm believer in Ollie Watkins' talent. There might also be a small narrative of he's had some moves rejected or stopped by the club in the last few years, particularly with Arsenal. Has he grown a little bit frustrated, a little bit stale at Villa? I'm not so sure, but for right now, you're not going anywhere. You need to turn your form around. You need to turn Villa's season around. Let's head over to Liverpool now, and Liverpool had a massive summer. It was well documented, British record in terms of total transfer fees, Isak, Wirtz, Ekitike, Frimpong, Kerkez. So much change there. So many first team ready or first 11, 14 players in your squad that will all get serious minutes, bang into it at the same time, trying to adapt. And it's led to a few teething issues, particularly and potentially surprisingly for Milos Kerkez. But before I get into that, also factor in that Trent Alexander-Arnold had left. Now, this is a guy that was second for passes completed in Liverpool's squad last year. He was second for passes into the box in Liverpool's squad last year behind Mo Salah. And he was first for progressive passes, so passes that go 10 yards towards the opponent's goal. He really was a key fulcrum and a key cog in their build-up and execution. But whilst Jeremie Frimpong has spent some time on the bench and Florian Wirtz has struggled to replicate his absolute best form in the Premier League just yet, although he did have an excellent game in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid, it's Milos Kerkez's form that has taken me most by surprise. This is a guy with 2 years Premier League experience with Bournemouth, but I'm going to caveat that with it's worth remembering that this guy is just 21 years old. Still, he is a relative newbie to professional football. And the games they've had so far, really, really challenging. Newcastle, Bournemouth, two of the hardest, most pressing, most intense teams to face in the league. If you're not quite on your game, you'll be found out. And he had a slightly difficult game against Antoine Semenyo. He then responds with that Newcastle game, a little bit poor in that. He was excellent against Arsenal, I thought. And then Burnley comes around and he's substituted before half-time. Unfortunately, he picked up a booking for diving. Really shouldn't be doing that. And then there was a foul on Jadon Anthony on the halfway line. And I think Arne just thought, we can't risk this guy coming off for a red card. He's got to come off as a substitute to save our bacon. But the issue is, for Milos Kerkez, is that Andy Robertson, who came on in that game, he had an absolute stormer from the off. He was so on it. He created 5 chances. That was more than anyone else on the pitch. And unsurprisingly, given the hothouse atmosphere at Anfield for the visit of Atletico Madrid, remembering what happened in 2020, Slot goes, look, I'm going to use Andy Robertson for this one, not Milos Kerkez. And Andy Robertson again has a really, really solid game in that match. His pass completion was close to 89%. He actually grabbed a goal, although he didn't know much about it, with that Salah free kick deflecting off him. And look, I'm not ruling out the fact that Milos Kerkez could have an excellent Liverpool career, but Andy Robertson, this is the first time he's been given a sort of competitor that is close to his level at his absolute best, let's say, with Tsimikas more of a squad player, I think, from the off. And Andy Robertson has shown so much leadership in responding to this challenge, not throwing his toys out of the pram. And Milos Kerkez at the moment, just 1 chance created. His progressive carries per 90, which is what so impressed last year at Bournemouth, have gone from 2.5 to just 1 per 90. So look, he needs to find his rhythm. He needs to find more relations with Cody Gakpo on the left-hand side, with McAllister and Gravenberch in midfield, with Van Dijk alongside him, and that'll come. But for now, it feels like Andy Robertson will be the starting left-back going forward, particularly against Everton in that Merseyside derby this weekend. Let's head over to Spain now because I want to talk about Gavi. Now, Gavi has had an absolutely mental last few years. He debuts for Barcelona at 17 in August 2021. He plays 96 games for Barcelona in his first 2 seasons. He starts 58 in La Liga in that time. He also plays for Spain in a World Cup during that time. But unfortunately for Gavi, he does his ACL in November 2023 playing for Spain. He almost misses an entire year worth of football, and it has had an effect on him since. He comes back around this time last year, and he actually plays 26 games in La Liga last season, but he only starts 14 of them. He ranks 17th in the squad for minutes. He actually plays 50 fewer league minutes than Gerard Martin, the much maligned Gerard Martin. And since his injury, Barcelona have signed Dani Olmo, they signed Rashford, they signed Rudy Bargi as well. So this is limiting his ability to play on the left wing, where he's picked up a lot of minutes. And so far this season, he's just played 66 minutes. It doesn't feel like he's got that much opportunity to start in central midfield. It feels like Pedri is always going to start. Casado's there. De Jong to offer a more physical alternative. And then Fermin Lopez, who he had a falling out with in the summer over some rough tackles he supposedly made in this pre-season training camp in South Korea, one of which required them to be separated afterwards, reportedly, and the other one required Fermin Lopez to be pulled up from the ground. This is the thing about Gavi. He is so tenacious, he is so hardworking, he is so determined, and I think he was overcommitted in that period, probably just to re-establish himself in the first 11 and Hansi Flick's thinking, but he went overboard there. Supposedly there's been a bit of a falling out between Gavi and Fermin Lopez, and then at the start of this season, Fermin Lopez has started really, really well, particularly in that game against Valencia last weekend, grabbing 2 goals, one of which was absolutely spectacular. So, look, I'm not writing off Gavi as a Barcelona player. That would be absolutely foolish. And they say with an ACL injury, it often takes as long as you're out to recover. So if, say, you're out for a year, it will take Gavi a year to get back to his best. So in the second half of this season, I think we'll see a different Gavi. But for now, he's struggling a little bit for rhythm, a little bit for game time in particular, and he is struggling at the moment. But I'm not writing him off. He's a top talent, and I back him to have a massive future at Barcelona. Let's head over to Italy now, and I want to talk about Ademola Lookman, who is a very different inclusion on this list than any other player. Ademola Lookman hasn't gone on the pitch so far this season. He's thrown his toys out of the pram. He's effectively on strike because that €50 million move, or that's what Atalanta's president and coach were asking for reportedly, move to Inter Milan didn't materialise. They eventually settled on signing Boni from Parma, a much cheaper, much younger alternative. And at 27 years old, Ademola Lookman seems to have thought, my big chance at playing for a top Champions League club has gone, and he's refusing to play at the moment. There is a massive standoff. Martin Duran has come out recently and said, we want to see him back on the pitch. Atalanta desperately need him. But did he deserve a move? Yeah. He's been phenomenal for Atalanta. 52 goals and 18 assists in 118 games. Last season he scores 20 and assists 7 in around 45 fixtures, helping Atalanta to third. It was their best points tally in 4 years. And look, on the back of that, you would maybe expect a move. But you're 27, Ademola Lookman. You're not 30. You could have another chance at getting a move in January next summer. Refusing to play, especially for a club that helped rebuild your career after spells at Leicester and Everton and Fulham and Leipzig, never really caught a light. It just feels very, very disrespectful. So whilst I can understand your frustration with the move not going through, you've got to get back on the pitch, man. Mainly for you as well, for your future. And increasing the chances of being moved on in the future, it doesn't make any sense to throw your toys out the pram and refuse to play. Lookman, I'm afraid you got to sort it out, man. Let's head back to Spain now, and I want to talk about Robin Lookman. Now, this guy is in his second season at Atleti after signing from Real Sociedad, and his first year at Atleti went pretty well. No centre-back started more league games than him. They had a very solid defensive record. It was the 4th best in the entirety of Europe. He played pretty well. This summer, David Hansko arrives from Feyenoord, and Lookman has been kind of moved around, or at least the composition of that defence has been moved around. Hansko has started as a centre-back. He started as a left-back. Lookman has played on the right-hand side. He's played on the left-hand side. Clement Lenglet has featured, and it seems to have upset his rhythm. He's already had a few shockers. He failed to deal with a counter-attack from an Atleti corner against Espanyol. They eventually lose that game. He loses Van Dijk last night in that game at Anfield for the winning goal, gets out-muscled. Look, Van Dijk's an absolute unit, but you've got to do better there. And so far, very little impact on the pitch. His aerial duel win rate is below 50%. That's shocking for a centre-back. He's only made 4 defensive actions. That's level with Antoine Griezmann, who's been used mainly off the bench. He needs to get it together. He needs to get it together fast. Luckily, it's not had too big an effect in terms of Atleti's defence, because this is really what they're building on at the moment, with that attack not yet clicking so far this season. Hopefully it will when Julian Alvarez returns from injury, because only Barcelona are conceding fewer shots per game than them. Only Athletic Club have conceded fewer expected goals against in the league so far. but on a big night at Anfield, you really need your centre-backs to be at your absolute best, and he won 17% of his aerial duels, of course losing Van Dijk for that winning goal as well. Robert Lemond, you've got big aspirations at international level, you've got big aspirations with Atleti, you need to step up, man. This next one kind of breaks my heart. I love Yann Sommer. He's an absolute legend. The guy spends 9 seasons at Borussia Mönchengladbach. He gets them into the top 4 3 times. He gets them into the Champions League last 16. It says on Wikipedia that this guy is 6 foot, but he really doesn't look it in goal. He's an absolute pocket rocket, super explosive, and gets that move to Bayern after Manuel Neuer breaks his leg after that World Cup. Only lasts 6 months there before he is signed by Inter Milan as Andre Onana's replacement. And in his first year at Inter Milan, 19 clean sheets, the best in Europe as in to win the league. Last year in the Champions League, helps them get all the way to the final, keeps 8 clean sheets in that competition, again the best in the competition, before Inter are absolutely smoked by PSG. But this season isn't going to plan so far. He's conceded 6 goals in 3 league games. He's already conceded over 2 more XG than the stats suggest he should have, given the quality of shots he's faced. And actually, it's really costing Inter as well. They're 11th in the table as it stands in Serie A, according to expected points. So the quality of chances they've created versus the quality of chances they've conceded in individual games and who would win those games, they should be 5th. So it is actually costing Inter right now. Interestingly, they are the biggest underperformers in terms of conceding more than XG suggests they should have, but they're also the biggest overperformers in terms of scoring more than XG suggests they should have as well. Christian Kivu's side will take a while to settle down. Massive performance from Marcus Thuram in midweek against Ajax. Yann Sommer, I'm not writing you off. You've had the sort of career where you can decide when to call it a day and even how it's going to go in the final few years of your career. But so far this season has not been your best thus far, particularly in that Juve game, massive game, probably at fault for 2 goals. They were great strikes, but you can do better with them, and it's costing Inter at the moment. You just need to wake up, man. Let's head over to Brighton now, and I want to talk about Maxim De Cuyper, the 24-year-old left-back they signed from Club Brugge. Now, I was really hot on this guy in the summer. In fact, I think I may have even picked him as one of my signings of the season. There was a good basis for that. He was 3rd for chances created in the entirety of Belgium last year, 5th for shot created actions per 90 from left back. This guy has an absolute wand of a left foot, great delivery from wide, and I thought it would translate really well to the Premier League, but thus far he hasn't got up to the required level. He's had some tough opponents. He's played Harry Wilson's Fulham, Antoine Semenyo's Bournemouth, Oscar Bob, Iliman Ndiaye, but he hasn't really delivered on his promise so far. Just 2 chances created. He's completed 25% of his dribbles. He's not offered a lot off the ball either, and he's got Kairo Matoma in front of him, who makes so many dynamic runs, who shows for the ball so effectively. I was just expecting a little bit more of De Cuyper. It's seriously early days. I'm not writing him off as a signing after 4 games, but I was expecting more. And they've got a really difficult run of fixtures as well. Spurs, Chelsea, Wolves, Newcastle United. There's some seriously high quality right wingers in those squads. He's going to have to improve vastly if Brighton are to get this season going. They haven't been a disaster thus far by any means, but I was expecting more from De Cuyper. Speaking of clubs struggling at the bottom of the Premier League, let's talk about Wolves, who are pointless after 4 games. And a key reason for that is the form of Jose Sarr in those first 3 games. He was dropped for their most recent game against Newcastle, and I think we'll struggle to see him coming back. He had a really terrible first 3 matches of the season. He only saved 33% of efforts on target. There was only one other goalkeeper in the entirety of Europe that saved less than 40% of shots on target. He ranked 106th out of 113 goalkeepers to feature in Europe's top 5 leagues so far in terms of XG prevented. He's already conceded 2.2 more than he should have, according to that metric. His form for Wolves for a number of seasons now has been a real struggle. And look, when you've lost so much quality throughout that side, when you've got a number of new players to bed in, you need to be able to rely on your goalkeeper. And Jose Sarr thus far just hasn't been able to do it. At 32 years old, we might have even seen the last of him in a Wolves shirt. The thing that's playing in his favour is the fact that Sam Johnston is fairly injury prone. Maybe we'll see him again at some stage this season, but I don't think Vitor Pereira, on the brink of signing a new contract, would have been delighted with his performances thus far. And for one of your more experienced players as well, he certainly needed more from him. And finally, I want to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, a lot of Liverpool fans, and I found it slightly annoying in the last few weeks, have been really jumping on his early performances for Real Madrid. And look, they haven't been great. He started 2 games in La Liga. He's been on the bench for 2 more. He got injured 5 minutes into that game against Marseille. taken off for Dani Carvajal, who then got sent off. So Xabi Alonso will be frustrated that he's got injured, but that's not his fault. And look, his performances in the first few games weren't brilliant. He's only created one chance thus far for Real Madrid. But I just don't think it's necessary for Liverpool fans to jump on his back immediately. He is gone. It's over, guys. The saga is done. You know, you had that whole contract impasse all throughout last year with Van Dijk, Salah, Trent. One of them didn't extend. One of them left for go to Real Madrid. And yes, he knew a lot more Spanish than you probably expected in his opening news conference. But he can't do any more harm to you now, guys. Just move on. You've got two great right-backs in Frimpong and Bradley. Do not worry. Let him be. And as for Trent, don't panic, man. Don't panic. I don't think it's a long shot that he'll be watching this video. But Dani Carvajal is a seriously experienced pro. What's he won? 6 Champions Leagues. There's no chance that he was just going to say, "Hola, Trent. Here's my shirt. Here's my place on the pitch. Enjoy." This is a player that prior to his injury was being talked about in the 2024 Ballon d'Or conversation. And look, I always thought that was a ridiculous kind of trophy infused argument that I never really like. Who won the most? They should win the Ballon d'Or. Never should be the way for me. But Dani Carvajal is a seriously experienced and world-class at points pro. Trent, he'll be fine when he gets back. Hamstrings take a little while to recover. Don't rush it. Calm down. But can Liverpool fans just back off him? He's gone. So guys, that was 10 stars struggling at the start of this season and how to fix it. What did you guys think of the list? Who did I miss out? And what did you think about my fixes as well? It is such early days in this campaign, but I've been thoroughly enjoying watching how these new teams mesh together and these new stars shine, hopefully shine, throughout the rest of this season too. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you next time.